Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, coming to you from the beautiful Reedville neighborhood in Boston, Massachusetts. We are so happy that you're part of our Reading with Your Kids family. Thanks so much for subscribing on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you find your podcast. We have a wonderful guest for you today. She reminds us that sometimes kids listen to books more than they listen to their parents. Our guest is coming to us from Singapore. Her name is Eva Wong Nava. Hey, for all the authors that are listening out there, I wanted to share with you this great email that we received here at the Reading with Your Kids podcast from Dr. Linda Mubarak. She is a past guest and the author of Maxine's New Job. Here's the email. Dear Fatima and Jed, good news! Maxine's New Job has been nominated to receive the prestigious Henri Award at the 2018 Christian Literacy Awards for Outstanding Literacy Work in the Children's Book Division. I sincerely believe your certifying Maxine as a great read helped bring increased social media attention to the book. Thank you for the exposure and the great marketing. We are so happy for Dr. Linda Mubarak that her book, Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read, Maxine's New Job, received this prestigious recognition. We would love to help your book receive that same kind of recognition. If you are interested in having your book considered for our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program, please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can click on the contact button, send us a note, and we'll send all the information back to you, or you can go right to our Certified Great Read page on our website. It's fun, it's easy, and it is really an effective way to let the world know that your book stands out above all the rest. The Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program. Joining us right now from Actually, she's joining us from the future because today here in Boston, it's today, but I'm speaking to her. She's in Singapore, and it's actually like tomorrow where she is. I don't get how that works, but anyways, she is the author of a great new book called Open, A Boy's Wayang Adventures. Please welcome to the show, Eva Wong Nava. Eva, how are you?
Hi there, I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm always just overwhelmed, and I'm really happy that I'm still overwhelmed that we have the ability to speak to somebody on the other side of the world. And on a different, you're on a different day. You're on Friday. I'm still on Thursday. And we're looking at each other, and there's like no delay. I remember calling somebody 50 miles away from my home, and there'd be this big, long delay waiting for the voices to kind of catch up to each other.
Yes, I remember that long time ago.
Yes. So I'm excited. Tell us about Open, A Boy's Wayang Adventures.
So, Open, I call the book Open because A Boy's Wayang Adventure is just a mouthful. Mm-hmm. So, to me, the book is referred to as Open. The character is actually called Open. So, he is a boy on the spectrum. Mm-hmm. So, he's 10 years old, and he is obsessed with monkeys. Mm. So, if you see the cover of the book, the jacket of the book has the profile of a monkey, but he's a special monkey. He's the Monkey King, who is a legendary figure from the Song dynasty in China.
Uh-huh. Wow.
So what Open wants to do is to be Monkey King on stage. But he has a lot of challenges to overcome before he can be that Monkey King on stage.
Mm. Now, you were telling me before the interview started that Wayang means theater. Is that right?
Yes, it means theater in the Malay vernacular. Mm-hmm. So in Singapore, we have 4 official languages in Singapore, and one of them is Malay. Because, the indigenous people of Singapore and Malaysia are the Malays. So when the Chinese came in the 19th century, from China, they came as immigrants to trade, to make better lives for themselves in this part of the world, Singapore and Malaysia. They brought with them their art form. One of these art forms is the Chinese theater. But when they brought it over here, they started to call it wayang. because that was what the Malays called theatre. And at that time, in the 20th century, Chinese people actually could speak Malay. Some of them still do. But they learned it as a language to communicate with the locals of the land. So the book is named this way, is entitled this way, because the book is an adaptation of a film that's made by a friend of mine called Raymond Tan. So the film is called The Wayang Kids. So basically the film is about a group of children, school-age children, 10 years old, and they live in Singapore. They go to school in Singapore. They have a classmate who is open, who is autistic, but they don't understand what he has, and they tease him and they kind of bully him. So Raymond and I got together as a collaborative team to adapt his film into the book that I've written, because we felt that the film and book can be two separate products, and they are two separate products. So hate the word products, but what it means is that we thought that a book would be able to reach out to different audiences. Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
So that's how it is.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. There are some people who prefer film. There's some people who prefer books. I personally love, I think I prefer books for the most part, but I also love experiencing a work in different formats and through different media. And so I usually will try, if I have an option, if there's a work that's in print and also on film, I always try to read the book first, because
that's right. Me too.
I find there's so much more in the book, and it's just such a more controlled experience. I think you're imagining things, and you are the one who decides the pace of how you're experiencing the production, and so wow, really neat. Tell me, it sounds like kids who have a diagnosis of autism in Singapore face a lot of the same challenges as kids who have the same diagnosis here in the States and probably in most places around the world. Mm-hmm.
Correct. That's right. I mean, I think what the challenges are is in Singapore, we have centers and we have schools that cater to individuals or children on the spectrum. Mm-hmm. If we had to compare, then awareness here is not, of course, it's not as great as, say, in the States or in England. We have certain people who are aware, or certain sectors in Singapore who are aware, but I think relatively it's still quite low. And that is why, when Raymond made that film, he made that film with this in mind. And when I wrote that book, I wrote the book with this also in mind, that again, reaching out to different audiences. So the book it's similar to the film, but it's actually not quite the same. Mm-hmm. So we like to joke, Raymond and I, to say that, like autistic individuals, we're the same but different.
That's a really neat way to put it. And because it's true, because, if you speak to somebody and you ask them, can you describe what autism is? It's really difficult, and if you say, well, what is a typical child who has a diagnosis of autism like? And it's like, well, it can be this side of the spectrum or anything in between. And in reality, you can say the same for most people too.
Absolutely.
And I think that's probably the awareness that we all need to kind of get to, is that yes, kids with a diagnosis of autism, they are different in certain ways, and they're different from each other, and they're different from us. But you and I are different from each other.
Absolutely.
You know, and we're still able to speak and have fun and have a discussion and become friends. Now, I want to ask you why you write cause-based books. And before you do, I want to acknowledge that your debut picture book, The Boy Who Talks in Bits and Bobs, it talks about a child who has a speech impediment, and that's something that's near and dear to my heart because I couldn't get out a sentence when I was a kid. I had a severe speech impediment, and very often it shows up here in my life at this time of my life. But it took there. I was very fortunate. Was able to get some therapy and was able to learn how to deal with it. But yeah, we dealt with. I dealt with folks making fun of me and frustrations and not being able to express myself and people thinking that I was dumb because I couldn't express myself. And so what is it that draws you to advocate for folks who are different?
Right. Firstly, thanks for being so honest with your own challenges. I mean, look at you now, right? So speech therapy
can't shut me
does
up.
help.
Yeah, absolutely.
May not help everyone because certain speech impediments are neurological and they don't go away. But why did I take up that course? Someone else had asked me that, and it really made me think quite hard because it was so natural for me to write that book. That book came to me really naturally. Owen, its character, the protagonist in The Boy Who Talks in Bits and Bobs, came to me in a dream. And it all started when my daughter was about 4 or 5 years old. My younger daughter, my second daughter, today she's 12. She had some challenges in pronouncing words, and that was to do with the way her jaw was formed at that time. And it's been corrected because we had to take her to see a pediatric dentist, and all that's been corrected. So she went through a period of therapy, speech therapy, with a speech therapist who was teaching her how to pronounce words. And because there were certain words she couldn't say properly. I mean, hers was quite mild because it has nothing to do with the brain or neurological. It had to do with her jaw, as I said. But anyway, I think one day we were looking for books, and I tend to go to books with my children to find things about certain things that they may have, that I myself find difficult to explain. So I go to books. Other people may explain it better through stories. And so I was looking for these books, and or a certain book that could explain speech impediments. And I couldn't find any. And then she said to me, in her 5-year-old voice and her 5-year-old self, and said, Mommy, why aren't there people like me in books? Because we really couldn't find any. And I think my heart just got really squeezed. My heart just went, I don't know why. But you know what? Mommy will find that book, And I didn't find that book. And then, we moved countries and we're now in Singapore. And it was through talking to a friend, and she was telling me about, her son who has a bit of a stutter, and, she's worried. And then that book, Owen, then came back to me. And I thought, I should write this book. And that's how it all happened. And and the title came to me also in a dream. Lots of things in my books, in my stories, come to me in dreams. I can't explain why. It just is the way it is. And that title also came to me in a dream. And I had a bit of the editor of the book said to me, bits and bobs mean quite different things. And I said, yes, it does mean different things. I mean, it's got nothing to do with speech. But, what I wanted to show, or what I wanted to, I guess show, was that, people with speech impediments do talk in bits and do talk in little bobs, I suppose. And that's how it came about.
Wonderful.
At this point, I want to talk about the collaboration, if I may, with the illustrator. So I worked with a wonderful, wonderful children's book illustrator who is from India, but she's also based in Singapore. And we found each other really coincidentally. We just kind of bumped into each other at a at a arts platform for people to connect. And we struck up a friendship, and I told her about this book, and she came on board like ASAP, really as soon as possible. And, it took us some months to work on this, and we finished the book, and it's hot in the press. It's being printed, launching March 9th.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. I love how things just kind of happen sometimes when we meet a collaborator by chance, or when a story comes to you in a dream. And when you were telling me that story, I was wondering, are you one of the people who, when you get that dream, when you get that idea, you have to jump up in the middle of the night and start writing, and because you're afraid if you go back to sleep, you're gonna lose it?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Yes, that's something my wife doesn't like about me. I love the fact that there are many stories that are beautiful, that are just written for fun, but I also love the fact that you have taken your art and you're using it specifically to be an advocate for folks who are different, especially for kids who are different. And I remember somebody speaking to me after one of my magic shows at a school, and I was there talking to kids, using my art to inspire kids to make healthy choices. And this person came up to me and said, "Gee, don't you wish you could just do your magic for art, and just do it for art and not have to put a message into it?" And I thought, and I said, No, this is what I'm supposed. This is what I'm supposed to be doing with this gift of mine, is to go out there and to inspire and advocate. And it's obvious that you've been getting a lot of joy advocating and helping kids become more empathetic.
Yes, I do get a lot of joy. I do get a lot of also I suppose satisfaction, because I believe that, we all have voices, some louder, some softer, and some never even heard. And, I would really like, I would really like to speak up for those whose voices never get heard, and to help them, and then eventually help them speak up for themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's how I see. And I think books are such great instruments for that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that because I think a lot of parents, and they don't have the same resources that you have. They don't have the same background. But talk about how you, as a parent, when you're approaching a subject that you're not fully comfortable with, what process do you have in looking out and searching for books that are going to help you talk to your kids about a certain topic?
Sure, that's a great question. I've always been a reader, so I've read from as long as I can remember, and my go-to has always been books. So I go to the library when I'm searching for an answer. I go to the library and I try to find the book. So I try to find books that can help me answer these questions. Of course, in the old days, we didn't have internet mm-hmm. or the World Wide Web. What we had were books, and that's where I go to. So I've kind of carried this habit into the lives of my children. So when I became a mom, I've read to my children since before they could even sit up. Before they could even understand mm-hmm. books. Mm-hmm. I just felt it was a natural thing to do. And so I would tell them stories. If I didn't read to them, I would tell them stories. I would make up stories. And I always find that stories help children navigate, their own thoughts, maybe certain things that they are confused about, it's different from your mom telling you, oh, you gotta eat vegetables, or, don't eat too much sugar, then finding a book and having a character go with a mom telling them to eat more vegetables and less sugary stuff. So I think children listen to stories.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's really profound. And, you know, you've just articulated something that I've been kind of struggling in trying to find the words with. Kids listen to stories, and they listen to stories better than they listen to their parents sometimes.
Yes, unfortunately, but no, fortunately.
Yes.
Whichever way you want to look at it.
No, you're absolutely right. It is fortunate because it is different. And there are many times, as you were talking about the example of, you're trying to teach your kids not to eat so much sugary stuff for breakfast and they're not listening to you. But then when they sit down and they read that book and that kid in the book is eating sugary things, you can almost be guaranteed that your kid's going to sit there and go, well, you shouldn't be eating so much sugary stuff. You should have some fruits and some vegetables. What's wrong with you? So it's just a way to kind of, it's a way for the kids to kind of process what they're learning from their parents.
That's right. Process. That's really good.
Yeah. I think we have this natural, especially, I know me, I had this natural kind of resistance to authority, that kind of rebel streak. And I think all kids are looking, basically their part of their growing up process is to break away from their parents. And that process starts the minute they come out into the world.
Exactly.
And so, so if while they're kind of dealing with, I'm listening to this person who loves me, but I'm supposed to push myself and be independent, if they can sit down and read a book and kind of go, okay, that conflict isn't there anymore. I'm just looking at this person and let me kind of process everything through. And, great. I love that. I love that kids listen to books more, sometimes better than they listen to their parents. Tell us about this new, contract that you recently signed with Penguin Random House Southeast Asia. This is exciting.
Oh, it's very exciting. So Penguin Random House is Penguin Books. Mm-hmm. And they've come and opened an office up in Southeast Asia, in Singapore, but they're representing writers, illustrators in the region of Southeast Asia. So it's exciting because, I'm co-writing a book with my friend Jun Ho. Jun Ho is a book reviewer, and I'm co-writing 2 books with her. One will be published or launched July 2019, and the other one in the future. We don't know when yet. And these books, again, will feature stories from the region. And they will be, I suppose they're known in the book industry as diverse books because it deals with, topics that are kind of off the grid, I suppose. Yeah. So I am very excited.
Yeah, very cool. One of the things that you mentioned is early on that there are 4 official languages in Singapore.
That's right.
And we've had guests on from India where I think I was told there's 28 official languages and maybe 128 actual languages.
That's right. Yeah. India's fascinating.
Here in the States, there's sometimes so much kind of language can cause real people to get their fists up, and even in Canada, I know there's tension sometimes between French speakers and English speakers. Yeah. What about in Singapore, where you have these 4 official languages? Do folks of the different is everybody getting along? Is there resistance to different languages?
So Singapore is actually very unique. These 4 languages represent the demographics of the country. So Malay, because it belongs to the indigenous people. Chinese is the other official language because, we have Chinese folks here. So there is a language called Tamil, mm-hmm. which is one of our official languages here because, the Indian, nationals or, whose ancestors have come from India have mainly come from South India, where they predominantly speak Tamil. So Tamil is an official language here. And then, of course, there's English. Mm-hmm. English is our commercial language. So trading, schools are mostly taught in the English medium. So whether people put fists up and fight over them, over these languages, I would say no.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people people feel quite represented here because, if you're Malay, you're represented by your language,
Mm-hmm.
and you take Malay as a second language, or you study Malay as a second language in your school.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting talking about languages. I've struggled I struggled with English as a kid. But I, worked and have learned to speak a little bit of Spanish and was able to perform and tour through Puerto Rico in
Wow.
Spanish. And that was really fun. But, we've hosted international kids here in our home, and the majority of those kids have come from China. And so I always, as they're trying to master their English in speaking to us, I always try to learn a little bit of Chinese or Mandarin. And boy, talk about feeling like that speech impediment comes back. I just, and they'd be very patient with me and tell me, and I'm like, I am saying what you're saying, and they go, no, it's a different tone. You have to move your tongue this way and that way and stand on your head. And I'm like, but I did learn how to say what I need, which I guess hopefully means I love you. So I get that, and I think, well, that's pretty important to know.
That's pretty important. It's such a universal language. Excellent.
Absolutely. Well, I know folks are going to want to learn more about Open and also The Boy Who Talks in Bits and Bobs. Tell folks where they can connect with you online, because you have a great website.
Thank you. Yes. They can connect with me online. They can subscribe to my blog. I blog every now and then about things I do, about the causes I advocate for. And The Boy Who Talks in Bits and Bobs is available on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. The Open, A Boy's Wayang Adventure, is available on my website. And that will take you directly to the publisher's website where you can purchase the book.
Awesome, awesome. And that website is EvaWongNava.com. And folks can also connect with you on Facebook?
That's right. Facebook, it's Eva Wong Nava, author.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we've had a blast. I really appreciate you getting up and speaking to us early Friday morning. And we're so happy that you joined us. We've been speaking to the author of Open, A Boy's Wayang Adventures. Her name is Eva Wong Nava. Eva, thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you, Jed. Thank you very much for making me part of the show.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We have a fantastic guest, one of the spooky middle grade authors, Kim Ventrella. She will be here to tell us about her brand new middle grade book, her brand new spooky middle grade book, Bone Hollow. That's the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast, Kim Ventrella. If you're the author of spooky middle grade books or spooky picture books or spooky YA books or any kind of kids book, we would love to have you as a guest on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Being a guest on the show gives you the opportunity to tell thousands of people all around the world about your great kids book. It really is true. We speak to people all around the world. Most of our listeners are from the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom. We also have huge numbers of listeners in France and Australia and China. We even have folks who listen to us down in Antarctica. Can you imagine that? Now check it out. Being a guest on the show, it's fun, it's easy, and it costs you absolutely nothing. What a great deal. Check it all out. Go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the contact button. Let us know about your great book. We'll let you know the next easy steps. Hey, we want to thank Eva Wong Nava for being with us today. Remember, she gives us great wisdom. Sometimes kids listen to books more than they listen to their parents. We also want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.